Hello, welcome to the second homework class for the online training for developers using Hot Docs and A2J Author to create online forms. Mark Lauritsen is going to lead us today, and Mark, you can take it over. And if people have questions or anything, put a question mark. I'll be monitoring the chat throughout the call, and as I see things that we may already have resources, I'm going to try to push those through the chat as links also. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Mark. I'm here with Bart Earl and Jessica and Claudia. This is our regular weekly call for folks who are in the current cohort taking this online course to provide an opportunity to review what you've been doing this past week, answer any questions. We have, I hope, still 2 volunteers from last time who are willing to kind of show us all what they've been doing and remind us what happened in the homework for week 1. I've got on the screen our schedule, which is our attempt to organize this chaos. Last week we met on the same time Wednesday on the 11th and did our introductions for folks who were participating in the course and previewed what's coming this week. In the meantime, you guys were supposed to have gone off and watched the recordings of a recorded lecture, some videos, and do the specified homework, which exists in the folder. And today we're here on call number 2, which is to review the work that's happened this first week, to see the volunteers present, ask any questions, and have any discussion, and give you a quick preview of what's coming during this second week, which we'll review next week at this similar call. Before we get going, let me just see if anybody's got any significant logistical questions. I think, Claudia, we could safely unmute everybody. We have a relatively small group. I think about 7 trainees are here today. And if you want to say something, speak up or raise your hand, make yourself known. We also have a question pane. But while we're doing that, I want to give the presenter baton to Melanie, if Melanie, you're game to do this, and ask you if you can show your screen and take us through what you've been doing and any issues you ran into in doing the homework for the first week.
Okay, let me figure out
okay.
how I get my homework up.
Oh, all right. Take your time. And the idea here is, just show your screen when you're ready, or talk. But and anyone else have any?
I'm going to say, can someone else go first and let me figure this out?
Okay, Diana, are you able and willing to go first? I think you.
I'm opening my Hot Docs right now.
Okay.
I got through all of the lessons, everything that we were supposed to do, and I had no real. Let me see.
That's a good sign.
Okay, show my screen. I think I'm getting here. And I've got 3 screens, so you may have to tell me what you're seeing.
We're seeing the running Hot Doc session, the LawHelp Interactive Resource Center behind it.
Okay, well,
That's
good.
Probably a good sign.
Yeah, looks like I set it up right for once. So as I said, I had no real problems, except I, at one point, did one of my components. I misspelled the name of it.
Yep.
So then I spent some time reworking it, making a new component with the correct name, deleting the old component, and then fixing it in the template so that everything was pointing at that I had all of the right things connected to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably my biggest difficulty.
Okay, and that's certainly a common issue folks run into, where you accidentally misspell a component, right, and then you need to change it. So long as you're not changing the variable type, from date to number or something, you can generally just change the name of the same component rather than recreating it, and just make sure that you update the reference to it in the template.
Well, I'm pretty sure that I actually had the type wrong also.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one thing that's immutable about a hot docs component. Once it exists as a variable of type X, you can't make it a variable of type Y. Okay. Any other sort of epiphanies or issues you ran into in going through that first round of homework?
This is Melanie. I don't know what happened to mine.
You mean you can't find it right now, or while you were doing it, it was misbehaving, or?
No, I mean, I did it all, and now I don't know where it is. So.
Okay. I think that's also another not uncommon experience with new hot docs developers, is sort of losing track of what's where. You have a hot docs library, I assume, that you have open. Does it have the templates in it that you were creating and working on in doing this homework?
Not that I can find.
Okay. And do you have hot docs? I mean, I don't want to embarrass you, but would you mind if we look at your screen while we're talking about this?
No, that's no problem.
All right. So I'm going to make you presenter.
Okay.
You should get a button to accept that honor. Okay. All right. So this is your hot docs library, my test templates. And it's got, but it doesn't have the Montana divorce stuff, right? Which is what you were, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, do you have another library in your collection somewhere? You can go to the file menu in the top left and see if there's you've got, there you go, a second one. Why don't you open that?
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, again, just go slow for a second, just for other folks, it should be obvious, but hot docs libraries are simply collections of pointers to templates. You can have as many or as few hot docs libraries as you want, and you can bounce between them. But any given template generally lives at least in one hot docs library. Now, what you did was you double-clicked it, right? So that causes it to actually run, right? Which is fine. And so we're looking at your template.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll let you talk. So tell us what you did.
Go ahead. You're right. You're looking at my what I created. So I sometimes I had a little issue, and I had to go back and reread the instructions with the, was it MU one? That one was a little weird.
Okay. The judicial district thing?
Yeah, I think I did it wrong, and then I had to go back and figure it out again. I don't know what I put in there, some weird number or something, and it made it not look right. So then I went back and I really realized that you just have to read the instructions and do it exactly.
Yeah. We tried to make the instructions accurate, but of course there's always a chance we got something wrong in them. Okay, so why don't you close out of this run, this assembly session, and let's look. So yeah, just exit that. Don't save unless you don't want to save a copy. So now we're in your library, right? And we're looking at a preview of the actual template. How do you open that template for editing? Right, it may take a second to open it. And it'll open up in, okay. So do you have this running somewhere else? In other words, is there a live, oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I must have double clicked on something because I just love to double click on things. So there we go.
Yeah, okay. And again, I think that's something I still do after working with hot docs for 20 years or more. I often double click when I mean the single click.
Right.
Yeah. At least in this situation, double clicking means run this guy, and single clicking means let me see it. Okay, so now you're still in the library. Go back into Word. Okay, and this is the hot docs template. And so, for instance, that judicial district number right there is sitting at the top of the caption, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's putting up the number like this. It's spelling it out. Is that an actual number variable, the judicial number? How would you know? It's got an NU, which means it should be a number, but is it actually a number?
Isn't it a number if you can add and subtract and do a mathematical something to it?
Yeah, if it is a number, those things are true. You can enter numerals and do math on it. But I guess my question is that one you created actually specified as a number variable? And just for orientation, if you click in the middle of it somewhere, right, like middle of its name, and then you go to your variable field button at the top. Yep, or edit field, edit component. Okay, so this is actually a text variable, interestingly. And the reason I'm telling you this is because, the format available for a text variable is things like this. Whereas if it was a number variable, it would be something like ordinal. There'd be various number formats as the options.
Right.
So this may not be working exactly the way you want, right? You probably, when you ran it, you noticed that it was prompting you for textual information as opposed to numerals.
Right.
So this is an example, I think, of what Diana illustrated, which was you create a component that's of the wrong type, and how do you recover from that?
So this should be a TE instead of a NU.
Well, I think if you wanted it to be a text variable, you would call it a
Or
T.
you have to do that.
I think it's the opposite, though. I think it's right. You actually need to have a number variable with the name you have. So, Bart, I don't know if you want to jump in and help me out here, but yeah, I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do this because
Oh, I'm sorry, NU.
Yeah, that's what you already have, right? That variable.
It's not going to let you.
Go ahead, Bart.
It's not going to let you because that variable already exists. It's not going to let you create a new. You have to. That's one of the things about when Mark was saying earlier that once you create a variable with a type, you can't create a new variable with the same name but a different type. So what you need to do is, so you either need to just delete the existing variable and recreate it, or what I sometimes do is I temporarily rename the existing variable, with something like temp or something like that in the name, then go create my new variable and replace the old variable with the new one.
Oh, okay.
It gets
That's a pretty neat trick.
Yeah, it gets tricky because what happens with renaming variables is that you in the scripts, if you rename a variable, it renames it. It renames it in scripts already. We haven't gotten into scripts yet in computations, but you'll see that you use variables, and then if you rename it, then you have to go revisit every place that it's used in order to replace it. But for now, just I think understanding that you've got to make sure you create it. That creating a variable of the wrong type creates some hassles in terms of correcting it if you're too far down the road.
Okay, so let me try.
So in the current situation, would it make sense, Bart, to just create a new variable here? Make sure it's a number variable at the top. You gotta right, and change the name a little bit for purposes of this exercise. And I think for for those on the call, this is the kind of thing people run into. We don't want to dwell too much on this particular issue, but I think it's a good illustration of just getting your heads around what hot docs does and can't do and doesn't do, and how you can recover from common missteps. And you now, yeah. Now, is that the same name you had before? I forget. I think it is.
Okay.
Like put a 2 after the word number. After the word number. There you go. That's good. Good. Okay. Now, so that's now a true number variable, right? Because you picked number type at the top in those radio buttons.
Right.
If you wanted that variable now to not put the actual numbers, numerals the user types, but to turn them into a, like 17th, an ordinal. Let's do that. And I'm not sure I'm doing it exactly the same way we described in the homework, but here, if you go back and click inside of Judicial District NU and right click and do Edit Field,
There we go.
Yep. Okay. And then, this is again, excuse me for slowing down for a second, but it's important to realize when you're working in a template, you have both the component itself, the underlying component, which has some properties that are true wherever it's used, and you've also got the local field, this specific location in your form, and it's got its properties. And right here, we're looking at the properties of this variable in this location, and you'll see it's got a little checkbox on the middle right, use defaults. That means use the format, use whatever format this thing has ordinarily, but uncheck that. And then go to the format box to the left, and now you ought to be able to pick 9th in caps. Yep. So now that it's a number variable, it's going to give you formats appropriate to numbers. And you pick the capitalized ordinal, which I think we want in this situation. Now if you click OK, it'll put that little formatting command in the variable reference in this location. And now if you run this guy, so if you do a test assemble in the top right on the button bar, on the toolbar, and scroll down, yeah, and you probably don't need to answer anything else, but put a number in the district number field somewhere down lower in this dialog. There you go. I put a 14 or something. And now if you do a document preview on the top, one of those tabs, it'll show you your current document. And you've got 14th coming through the way you want it.
Great.
So that was kind of a long-winded explanation, but that's the idea. So let me be quiet again and see if you have questions or comments, or anybody else does, about this aspect of things. So to recapitulate again, we've already encountered 2 things where a variable was named wrong and had the wrong type apparently. Maybe Diana, you had the same issue or a related issue, and we showed how you can't change the type of a variable. So in this situation, we had to temporarily at least create an alternative one with the right type. And then once you have the right type variable, you get the right options for the formats for it. And then this idea of there being a difference between the local field properties of a variable in a particular location and the underlying properties of the variables that apply by default wherever it's used. Okay. Anyone else run into problems, issues who are not among our volunteers who are presenting today? Sounds nice and quiet. I hope that means you guys are all feeling pretty comfortable. We can keep, feel free to jump in if anyone has a question or a comment. I'm just going to, in the meantime, make myself presenter again. And just show you what's coming in the second week. As I think I mentioned last week, things get a little bit busier, more complex each week we go in. There is someone want to speak, by the way, just jump in.
Yeah, before you go into that, Mark, I noticed the interview that we were just looking at that the state multiple choice variable was radio buttons
Okay.
rather than a drop down. I don't know if we want to talk about that.
Melanie, I'm going to give you presenter again, just so Bart can be talking to okay, something visible. Okay, so go ahead, Bart.
Yeah, so do a test assembly now, please, Melanie. Okay, so the state variable there is displaying as radio buttons. Ordinarily, when you have that many choices, and hopefully in the homework we specified this, that it should be a drop down rather than displayed as a drop down rather than radio buttons. And while you have an interview open, you can actually on the fly make changes to things and see them right away. So right click on the state or any place in that state and then click edit dialog component. I guess it's going to do the dialogue rather than there is a way to get directly to the
I think you have to click right on one of the options.
Yeah, select one of the states and then just right click edit component. There you go. Okay, so now this opens up the variable for editing, and if you look down the bottom, you've got style and it has buttons. If you click the drop down and change it to drop down list, and then you can click OK. And now you've got a drop down.
Sorry, I realized I missed myself. That was pretty neat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Back to you, Mark.
Yeah, that technique Bart showed of just being able to have a test assemble where you're running the interview and then right click on things to fix them is really powerful. We do that all the time. So we'll be seeing that more and more as time goes by. But if at any stage of your development you do a test assemble and it's not looking quite right, you can often just jump behind the scenes beneath the surface and make a change, and when you return, the interview has been updated to the current state of your component file. So that's a valuable time saver. And so it's not uncommon while you're working to have kind of three things open. You have the underlying template, you have what's called the component manager, which I don't think we've quite introduced yet, but will soon. And then you have a test run. And you can kind of bounce between these different pieces, these different aspects of your work to adjust things and iteratively bring it into compliance with your intentions. Good one, Bart. Okay. Anyone else have a related question or issue you've encountered, or something you were positively or negatively surprised by so far in learning how this stuff works? Okay. Again, don't hesitate to jump in. This next week, we have another batch of things for you to do. We want you to watch some videos, or I think it's all just one video this week, one YouTube video, and do the associated homework. The homework for week 2, I'm sorry, this is week 1. Let me get back to the right place here myself. So the work to be done before our next call is present here, materials and homework for week 2. And Claudia and I are trying to make sure these online folders are as accurate as possible, so bear with us if you run into any issues. So we have some more of the basic Hot Docs developer, the one that comes with Hot Docs. We are encouraging you to go through for background. We do want you to sign up for LHI Author if you haven't already. Ideally, we'd like you to have a plan for a project you're actually planning to do with your skills in this course. And then the class this time is going to cover new topics. Let me bring up the overall syllabus. So far, you've been introduced to the ideas of variables and prompts and all this kind of stuff, different types, how you test them. In the second week, you get into the very essential feature of conditionality, right? How do you make things conditional? How do you use if statements and else statements and various, logical structures to show or hide things in your document based upon answers to questions? And they can be nested, which gets pretty interesting. So that's one chunk. I believe Bart recorded this associated lecture. The second part of this week is getting into dialogues. How do you create interactive dialogues that have a little more? Sorry, I'm screwing up here. Have a little more power to them than the automatic ones Hot Docs creates. And you get introduced to the component manager and the template manager, which are really powerful utilities Hot Docs gives you to manage all the complexity, potential complexity of these applications. So, and then at the end we get into some more details, some more advanced topics of how you can script your dialogues and their behavior. So that's the coming attraction for week 2. A similar process though. Watch a video, download the homework, follow along, try to replicate what's in there, and then show up here a week from today to talk and listen. So I need a volunteer or two for next week. Who on the present call is willing to do what Melanie and Diana did today and show your work and be a guinea pig for the rest of us to watch?
This is Stephen Seeley. I can go ahead and volunteer.
Cool. Okay. Stephen, we'll put you down. Does anybody else want to get on the list for volunteering?
This is Kate Guerrero. I'll volunteer.
Okay. So Stephen and Kate will put you in the hot seat next week. If you have any questions or problems in the meantime, you can reach out to any of us and we can try to get you through it. Let's see. Anyone else have a concern, a question, a comment you'd like to surface? We don't need to use the whole hour. We can if you need to. Art or Claudia or Jessica, anybody have any words of wisdom to wrap up today if we don't hear anything pretty quickly?
No, I would just let people know I put in the folder a piece that got published I think 2 or 3 years ago that's called 9 Things I Learned or whatever things I learned as I help people create and sustain document assembly projects. It's in the main folder of the training at the very bottom. I encourage all of you to read that, particularly if you're going to be project managing a document assembly project, because generally with document assembly projects, eventually they become multiple skill projects. You need somebody that's gonna do the management, fundraising, and work on the evaluation of the project, and that may be one person or somebody else in your organization depending on how much management support you have. And then you're gonna have a person that's the champion, and generally that's going to be a lawyer or a judge that really sees the value of the forms, and it's going to be the person that's going to remove political barriers or resistance to change, because technology heightens resistance to change. And then there's going to be the developer, and the developer hopefully will be you, but maybe you will be playing eventually one of these other roles. You may not be the developer. So I encourage everybody to read it. Mark, I think that we should surface that great article. Capstone had that great article about the 12 steps to a successful document assembly project.
Sure. Yeah.
I think I don't know if it's still in your website, but we should share that one, because I think that as you start learning how to do the detailed mechanics of this, you need to start thinking, is this my role or will I play a different role? And right now this class is focusing on the creation of the forms and only the creation of the forms. And I just want to encourage you to to reach out to me if you're having questions. You know, you can stay, even if you're not going to be the developer, I encourage you to stay in the course, because if you become the manager, if you become the substantive expert that is going to be giving feedback to whoever becomes the developer, understanding these mechanics will help you provide them better feedback, more specific feedback, so that the forms get designed better. So you may decide, you may see like maybe third class or later on, you may say, wow, this is not gonna be me because I go to trial, I have a docket that I'm in a queue, and or I'm supervising pro bono, 1,200 pro bono lawyers, whatever it is, and you won't have the time to do this. But try to stick through, because understanding how to work with your developer will be gold. And if eventually you don't become the developer, that's absolutely fine. You know, we love to have you here. And reach out to me or Miranda, who is the other person at LawHelp Interactive, to help you work through all of these other things that we're not going to cover. And the other thing is that we're also not going to cover a lot of the functionality that exists on the back end of LHI, like case management integration and e-filing and other things. So if you have questions about those, you can reach out to me and we can talk about those other more advanced features.
Great. Thank you, Claudia. Yes, I encourage you to look at this article. Claudia's got linked on the top page of the folders for this course. The piece she mentioned is something that a colleague and I wrote many years ago about keys for success in a document assembly project. And it's linked in some materials you'll be getting a little bit later in the course. If anyone's especially interested, I can provide it earlier. One other thing to mention before we go is there is the monthly community calls for the LawHelp Interactive community. We have one coming up before our next call for this session on Tuesday, the 24th. And Claudia, that's going to cover both a really interesting chatbot tool that's being used in one of our states and law school courses that build these kinds of applications as part of student work. So that's at 2 p.m. Eastern on September 24th. You should have seen a notice about that and an opportunity to register. But I encourage you guys to sit in that, because it gives you a window into the broader LawHelp Interactive universe.
And I just put the URL there to sign
Okay.
up. When you sign up for that, you're gonna be signed up for the whole series. We do once a month. The one in October is going to be really good because there's been a lot of regulatory activity at multiple levels. And in October, we're going to be giving an update of the ABA guidelines for document assembly platforms and providers, and that's gonna be the October call. So,
Yep.
but this September call it's really good particularly if you have relationships with law schools, or if you're interested in seeing how you can provide additional support in the context of preparing a form.
Okay, so focus on your immediate hot docs work, but be aware of all those bigger picture stuff going on. It's a quite interesting phenomenon. Anyone have any questions or comments before we wrap up?
Jessica, should we give a shout out to your A2J author calls too? Your training calls?
Of course. So I mentioned in the training videos that y'all will be watching for 2 weeks from now. But on the first Thursday of every month at 11 o'clock Central, we do a new user webinar. Generally, it's like 15 to 20 minutes long and covers one specific topic about A to J author. The October call is going to be on bugs and prioritizing issues that affect the community. So it'll be a little bit different. But I record all of them and they're posted on our YouTube channel, which you'll learn more about in the A to J videos as well.
Okay. I think we're good, Claudia. We can wrap up unless anyone else wants to take a last moment to say something.
Okay. Well, thank you all, and stick with it. And we'll see you next week at the same channel, same time. Thank you all.
Take care, everybody.
Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.